With the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie release date closing in, I thought it would be good to look back at the FNaF 2 game and see if it can be solved, or at least I'll try to solve it. I listened to all the phone calls, inspected all the minigames, watched those dream cutscenes and did many more to get a full understanding and refresher of the game. I haven't watched any FNaF 2 lore videos in a long time because I don't want to be influenced by any of them, and I may just want to say my full interpretation of this game with my own thoughts. Just before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe as it would help out a lot and you can always change your mind in the future. Now with all that said, let's dive straight into FNaF 2. The game opens up with a newspaper, presumably being viewed by the protagonist of the game, who we later find out by the end of night 5 is Jeremy Fitzgerald, and is likely how he found the job listing for the pizzeria. It says,
"Help wanted. Grand reopening. Vintage pizzeria given new life. Come be a part of the new face of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. What could go wrong? $100 with 50 cents a week. To apply, call 1-555-Faz-Fazbear."
Night 1 opens up with Phone Guy, whose real name is Ralph thanks to the week before. He's giving some introductory thing to Jeremy, and also talking about the toy animatronics being able to move around during the day and that they have a criminal database that can detect predators. Ralph mentions that Jeremy is only the second night guard to work at that location, and that the first guy finished his week but complained about conditions, so he was transferred to the day shift. Ralph also mentions that the music box at the prize counter needs to be round up remotely, and that it affects one of the animatronics, the puppet. Another detail Ralph talks about is that Jeremy has been given an empty Freddy Fazbear head to defend himself against the animatronics. Night 2 opens up again with Ralph, who starts off talking about the withered animatronics in the backroom and how they were retrofitted with a newer technology. However, due to the smell, they were just left in parts and service for the time being. Ralph mentions that Foxy was always a bit twitchy and that the Freddy mask won't fool him, and also once again heavily emphasizes that Jeremy must not forget the music box, even telling him that he never liked the puppet as it's always thinking and that it can go anywhere. Night 3, again with Ralph on the phone. He mentions that Foxy was always his favourite and that they tried to make a newer version dubbed the Mangle by the employees, as kids would take him apart and the staff just gave up putting her back together. Ralph then speaks about the rumours developing but assures Jeremy that they aren't anything to do with the establishment and brushes it off with people trying to make a buck. Night 4, yeah, you get the deal. Ralph calls up and says that an investigation's going on and that the place might close for a few days and emphasizes that it's just a precaution. Ralph then talks about how the animatronics have been acting unusual and almost aggressively towards the staff. They interact with the kids just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just stare. Night 5, Ralph mentions that the building is on lockdown and no one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees. He follows up by saying that Jeremy might be moved to the day shift because the position just became available. Ralph then says that he's trying to contact the original restaurant owner and the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner. It's been closed for years by this point. After beating Night 5, we agree to read Jeremy Fitzgerald's paycheck, which has the date 12th of November 1987, so that $100.50 pay makes sense for that year due to it being minimum wage for that time. This is mainly the part where people figured out that FNaF 2 is a prequel to FNaF 1. For Night 6, I'll just play the full phone call.
Hello. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself. Okay, good night and good luck.
After beating this night, we are again greeted with another paycheck dated 13th of November 1987, and Jeremy is paid an extra $20.10 for overtime. There is a newspaper which says,
"After being open only a few short weeks, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closing its doors. The new animatronics will be scrapped due to possible malfunctions. However, the original characters are being kept in hopes of a possible reorganisation of the company. It's a minor setback. We are confident that we will reopen someday, even if it is with a much smaller budget," says the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment.
Night 7 doesn't have a phone call, but after beating the night, we are met with a pink slip that has the name Fritz Smith on it. More on this guy later, but he is fired on his first day of the job for tampering with the animatronics and odour. He is also the third night guard to have worked at this establishment. When booting up the game for the very first time, you get this cinematic which is implied to be a dream due to how they have called that in the game files. The dreamer seems to be in the place of Freddy Fazbear at the FNaF 1/MCI location, and after it ends, ERR appears in the top right corner, likely meaning error. After beating Night 2, another dream occurs in the same area. However, Bonnie and Chica are looking at the dream at this time, and when the sequence ends, it says, "It's me" in the top right corner. After beating Night 3, another dream happens, and this time, alongside Bonnie and Chica looking at the dreamer, Golden Freddy is present, also staring at the dreamer. Again, after the cinematic ends, it says, "It's me" in the top right corner. After beating Night 4, you know the drill. Another one happens, and the puppet is there, staring at the dreamer and moving alongside them. Bonnie and Chica aren't looking at the dreamer anymore. Again, "It's me" appears in the top right corner. It's implied Jeremy is having these dreams, no clue how, maybe it's something to do with the Freddy mask or some reminiscence permanent or agony bullshit, who knows. There is a 1 in 10 chance that after you die in FNAF 2, you are shown one of the 4 minigames. The first one I'll explain is Take Cake to the Children, which has you playing as Freddy whilst feeding children with cake. There is also a crying child outside the building, and then a purple car pulls up and a man comes out of the vehicle and then kills the child and then drives off. The minigame then ends with a jump scare from the puppet. We now know this to be the murder of Charlie Emily and William's first kill most likely, and that Charlie died at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza thanks to a ticket of fun, and then she possesses the puppet. The letters being spelled out in the background are save him. The next minigame to talk about is Foxy Go Go Go, which has Foxy repeatedly come out of Pirate's Cove to meet with kids. However, on the third one, we see William Afton standing by the pizzeria's wall with presumably a smile on his face, and when you go over to the kids, they are deceased. Foxy then jump scares you, ending the minigame. This is probably showing us another look at the missing children incident from 1985 due to Pirate's Cove not being at the FNAF 2 location, but it was at the 1985 location, which is also the FNAF 1 location, as implied by Henry in Pizzeria Simulator.
He lured them all back to a familiar place. Back with familiar tricks.
The third minigame to mention is Save Them, which has the player control Withered Freddy in the FNAF 2 building. We see that 5 kids are found dead at the FNAF 2 pizzeria, scattered all over the building. There is also a 1 in 100 chance that William Afton will appear, which if he gets the player, the game ends and the words "you can't" show up in the bottom left corner. The final minigame is Give Gifts, Give Life, and shows the puppet giving presents to 4 deceased children. The presents then disappear and it now says on the top of the screen to give life, and as you approach each child again, they are given a Freddy, Bonnie, Chica and Foxy head respectively. But as you give the last child the life, a 5th one appears in the middle of the minigame for a split second, until Golden Freddy jump scares you. This is probably showing us how the missing children were given life inside the animatronics. And no, I don't think the puppets stuffed the kids inside the suits, especially when it's been shoved in our faces many times that Afton was the one who stuffed the kids in the suits, like it's canon in both the novel trilogy and the FNAF movie. There's also these rare screens of Toy Bonnie, Withered Freddy and Withered Foxy. I have zero clue what these are meant to be. I guess Scott did it to be scary or something, but the FNAF 3 ones have a lot of reasons, so I don't know. Alright. Now onto the part that most people clicked on the video for, the theories and speculation. Let's start with the Dead Children incident, commonly shortened as DCI, is the community-given name of the kids that were killed by William Afton at the FNAF 2 location in 1987. Due to how these kids have become so irrelevant since 2014, many theories have been created around the DCI in an attempt to solve their enigmatic presence. But I'm gonna be upfront about it, they possess the toys, and I don't know why this is such a point of attention. Firstly, we know the toys are probably possessed, as they are acting up in the game, and Ralph's stuff about the animatronic Senior was then disguised without his costume on is Fazbear propaganda. Also in FNAF VR, the people couldn't recreate Mangle moving around the ceiling, and this would be strange as FNAF VR is set in the early 2030s, over 40 years later. Some of the toys even have that silver eye thing going on as well, so yeah, they are most definitely possessed, and I'm 99.9% sure the DCI possessed them. As with a minigame, which shows us 5 dead kids at the new pizzeria, and then we have 5 new animatronics who are acting strange. This minigame is basically explaining to everyone why the toys are acting up, because they are possessed by the DCI. Toys MCI is probably not true, as the 4th clause it shows that spirits need to willingly accept going into another vessel. There's also a theory as well which states that the DCI never existed, but this is straight up debunked by the week before, as it says on page 14, the franchise has truly fallen on hard times, thanks to those pernicious rumours about missing kids and a lingering bad press from the Bite of 87. This can be talking about the MCI, as they weren't a rumour, and the fact that this is paired with the Bite of 87 most likely means Ralph was talking about the DCI. Also, they imply to be referenced in the Interbit video game as well. Some people also think there's a 6th victim due to the blood underneath this table, and in the FNAF 2 game, this table is not present. However, the rescue children in Into the Pit only have 5 kids, so if they are the DCI, then it's unlikely there's a 6th victim. And I don't trust the minigame sprites, as they are inconsistent, so Scott could have just forgotten about that table. The DCI is probably what caused that investigation that Ralph was talking about, and the DCI probably moved on after FNAF Free Fire. I don't know. Now, on to the next mystery. The Bite of 87 is one of the most iconic mysteries in all of FNAF, and still, even 11 years later, we don't even know the culprit. I think everyone pretty much agrees that Jeremy Fitzgerald is the victim, and here's why. The evidence in FNAF 2 alone is that the bite has to take place on his day shift, as it didn't happen before his shift, as Ralph says the animatronics can walk around during the day on night 1, and we know that this feature was removed after the bite, as confirmed by Ralph in FNAF 1.
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day, too, but then there was the Bite of 87.
Jeremy was told by Ralph to stay close to the animatronics and wear his uniform, and we know the animatronics were acting aggressively towards the staff. Furthermore, the victim cannot be a child, as the animatronics were friendly of kids. Also, Jeremys tend to have a face/head related injury happen to them in the game's timeline, such as MCI Jeremy, possessed Bonnie, loses his face in FNAF 2, and Jeremy in Help Wanted sliced his face off the VR headset with a paper slicer. So it would make sense for Jeremy Fitzgerald, who is heavily theorized to be the Bite of 87 victim, to suffer a similar injury. Evidence from the week before borderline confirms that the bite victim was a staff member, as after the bite, staff members at Freddy's said, "You can't spell team without meat," as meat is team spelled backward. The book also confirms the bite victim was a male, further alluding to Jeremy. Also, Also, after Bite of 87, staff members started spreading around survival tactics on how to slow or stop the animatronic, to which Ralph had to put a stop to. So yeah, I think it's pretty much definite that Jeremy Fitzgerald is the Bite of 87 victim. Jeremy survives the incident, as Ralph says in FNaF 1 that it's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, and we get more insight on this in the week before. As it says, if only the victim could tell what you did to provoke the attack, but he doesn't talk anymore, or do much else. Losing your frontal lobe will place you in a vegetative state for life, so Jeremy cannot be Cassie's dad or help one of Jeremy as it's theorized. He also isn't Mike, and I know people use Ticket to Fun as evidence, however Mike gets that paycheck in like some welcome kit. Plus, if he was Jeremy, why does Bro still have that paycheck? Just cash it in. Now for the culprit. We can rule out the Wizards, since they were stored in the back room, and the newspaper at the end of the game says how the toys are being scrapped. Some theorists say that this isn't referring to the bite, and it's just simply possible malfunctions like the newspaper says. However, I doubt that. I think this is Fazbear Entertainment's very last attempt to try and do a PR move, but it doesn't work, as we know in the week before that the press go absolutely nuts with the incident. The bite also happens on night 6 during the day, and I know Phone Guy says tomorrow during night 6, however he says that at 12 AM, and it's quite common for people to say tomorrow as in later in the day at that time, so the bite still happens on the 13th of November. And yes, Fazbear Entertainment would make Jeremy work later in the day after his night shift. Just look at Arnold in Secret of the Mimic. Bro's working 36 hours straight. As I said earlier, it can be the Wizards, which includes Wither Foxy. I know there's that evidence in the week before, which says Foxy has never bitten any kids, and the kids is written in italic, implying he's bitten an adult before. However, the book also implies Freddy was the culprit, as when he leans down to Ralph's head, Ralph wonders what it would be like to live without a frontal lobe, implying Freddy has bitten someone's frontal lobe off. So the book is really just shifting the suspects around and not proving anything, similar to the FNaF 4 teasers. Okay, we just have the toys left. Which one did it? Well, Toy Freddy and Toy Bonnie can be ruled out because they have like zero evidence, or barely anything that's strong enough. And Balloon Boy, well, just look at Bro, he ain't biting shit. Toy Chica does have some implications, as in Ultimate Custom Night, she says, "Where's my beak?" Launching your forehead, of course. However, that is not a bite, it's a stab or a peck. Stabbing someone in the head with a beak is not a bite, so I doubt it's Toy Chica. And now that leaves Mangle, and yes, I do believe she did the bite of A7, and here's why. Firstly, you got the jump scare where Mangle lunges towards Jeremy's head, where the frontal lobe is located, implying this is how Mangle usually attacks. Then in Help Wanted, there is a shadow variant of Mangle, which is quite odd when you think about it. The shadows in FNaF are born from tragic events, such as Shadow Freddy, who's implied to be born from the bite of E3 or Charlie's murder. And RWQ is, I think, born from the DCI, I'm not sure though. Anyway, Shadow Mangle could be a hint towards him being the culprit, and in the same game, a character named Jeremy suffers a head-related injury, so you never know, could be a connection. Also, FNaF AR implies Mangle has a motive for doing the bite, which could be PTSD and revenge for being torn apart in Kids Cove.
Now it's my turn to play take apart and put back together. This almost makes us yearn for the days of the Kids Cove. Never again. Never. Never, ever, never. Not again. I must find the peace. No. Not again. Now.
In conclusion to the bite section of this video, I think Mangle is probably the culprit, and Jeremy Fitzgerald is very much likely the victim. Now, on to the next mystery. Fritz Smith is a very strange individual because he just appears out of nowhere on night 7, and after beating a night, he's never seen again. He is implied to be Mike Schmidt, who is Michael Afton as confirmed by the logbook and FNaF 4, and the evidence is that both are fired for similar reasons. Schmidt is the German equivalent of Smith. Fritz links back to Foxy, as the kid who possesses Foxy is called Fritz, and Mike is associated with Foxy as seen in FNaF 4. A point that I think Zerox found is that in the Fazbear's Fright story Sea Bonnies, a goldfish named Fritz is attacked by other sea bonnies and turns blue, becoming one of them, which some assume is a meta reference to Mike getting scooped. The firing reasons are probably meta though, as the odor is a reference to the player being a sweat, and the tampering with the animatronics could be due to how well the player interacts with the AI in the menu. Overall, solid theory, but I'm kind of mixed on it currently. On to the next mystery. Many people still believe that William Afton used the Spring Bonnie suit while committing the DCI. However, I don't think this is the case, and here's why. Ralph says on night 6 that someone used a spare yellow suit in the back, and this line implies there's only one suit. Golden Freddy is most aggressive on this night, implying a connection between Golden Freddy and the yellow suit Ralph talks about. There's also a drawing in the office depicting Golden Freddy, which further implies he's the suit in the back. Spring Bonnie can't be at the FNaF 2 location, as the suit is in the safe room by 1985, and it was noticeably moved as William used it for the MCI. We know the safe rooms are sealed up around that point, so the Spring Bonnie suit is likely sealed up inside it. This seems to be backed up by Follow Me, which has a Spring Bonnie suit inside the safe room, and we know the FNaF 1 location is the MCI location as I said earlier. So yeah, I think this is likely he used Golden Freddy for the DCI. Now the next mystery. Recently, there has been an increase in people who believe the FNaF 2 location was a repurposed location that existed in 1983. The evidence is that in the opening newspaper, it says Grand Reopening and Vintage Pizzeria given new life. Vintage means old, and Grand Reopening applies to places opening up after a previous closure. Also in the FNaF 2 movie, the FNaF 2 location is the original pizzeria. The FNaF 2 location also looks old and grainy in some areas. However, though the evidence is quite good, I don't believe the theory, and here's why. Ralph says on night 1 that Jeremy is only the second night guard to work at that location, and we know William is the first guard that started the week before Jeremy. Ralph is talking about the location as a whole, and if this pizzeria existed years prior, they would definitely have guards in there pre-1987, as R&D had a security office, so night guards were always the plan at the pizzerias regardless of any incidents. So I think because of what Ralph says, I have my doubts in the vintage location theory. The grand reopening and vintage stuff in the newspaper could just be talking about the franchise as a whole, as it's a grand reopening for the franchise. Now, on to the final mystery. In the FNaF 2 Night 1 call, Ralph welcomes Jeremy to his summer job, which is weird, right, because the paycheck we receive has a date November, which is in fall. I'm fairly certain this was a mistake on Scott's part, as FNaF 1's Steam description says how it's a summer job that Mike takes, however the game is set in November as well. I think Scott clarified this in Ultimate Custom Night, as Mr. Hippo makes a joke about the summer versus fall debate, and says,
I believe it was summer, no, perhaps it was it the fall? Yes. It was the fall because the leaves had turned already.
So I think the summer stuff was just a mistake on Scott's part, especially since he's done it before with FNaF 1. And that's pretty much it. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, even if you disagreed with some of my takes. Make sure to like the video and also subscribe to the channel. Remember to be respectful to each other in the comment section, as it's just creepy bear glimmer at the end of the day. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the flip side. Goodbye!